It's been a super rainy, thunderstormy day all day, and it's finally dry for a spell, and I'm gonna have a little walk through the garden, and I figured this is a perfect time for a June garden tour before it turns into July. The raised beds are all filled up. The tomatoes are growing happily in the trellises, and there's lots of green tomatoes forming. Almost every tomato plant has green tomatoes on it now. So exciting. It won't be long now. Another thing that's exciting for me especially are the loofahs. I've never grown loofahs before, and I know that sometimes they're tricky in our climate, but they're forming. The other thing that I find really exciting in this garden is the fact that the strawberries are producing really well technically in their first year. They were just planted this year, even though some of them I had set aside in a planter last year. They're under this makeshift bird netting. We do have plans to build a proper hardware cloth cage with a hinged lid so it's easy for me and the kids to reach in, but we are picking them every day. A good bowl full of them every day. I haven't really eaten any. It's just the kids, but that's what they're there for, really. The Brassica Bed is going bonkers. We've got cabbages in here. It's kind of hard to see through the insect netting. I'm keeping the brassicas covered with this insect netting because I'm not into dealing with the cabbage looper. It's the white butterflies you see, or moths, butterflies flying around. They have these little green caterpillars that hatch from their eggs, and they are very destructive to brassicas. And the netting is a purely organic physical barrier that keeps them out. So in here we also have tons of Swiss chard and broccoli. I've been picking lots of little broccolis, and these are actually not supposed to be branching broccoli. They're supposed to be heading, which means they're supposed to form those big broccoli heads that you buy in the store. You can see there's a little branch of broccoli there. It's just sending up little sprouts like that, which is fine. Honestly, it's just as effective to cook and eat. The really exciting part of the Brassica Bed, though, is on the other side. More cauliflowers. They're doing so well. They are getting big already. These cauliflowers were planted all at the same time, but I've already harvested one plant's worth, and actually that plant that I harvested set out side shoots, and so I got extra cauliflower from the one. These two are a little bit behind, but man, are they beautiful. They're absolutely perfect cauliflowers. I do want to encourage the leaves to cover over them a bit though, so they stay nice and white. I think that helps them be sweeter. I think they're almost ready to harvest. If you leave cauliflower too long, it starts to open up. It is a flower that will open up. And then it just starts to lose some of its sweetness after too long of being open. But these ones are perfect right now. Probably gonna harvest them in the next couple of days and maybe bring them to a family get-together on the weekend so we can share the love. The peas are almost done, but I'm holding out hope. They keep putting out the occasional pod. For the most part are done, but I've noticed right at the tops of the plants they're putting on another flush of flowers. So I think I made the right choice in leaving them. Peas are a cooler season crop. They do best in spring and in fall. They've been producing now for a month, thereabouts. When it gets hot, they just aren't happy, so they produce less. And also I find peas, at least in my past home and garden, struggled with powdery mildew. Knock on wood, there's none of that affecting them yet. See the blossoms right at the tops of these pea plants. I'm gonna leave them and see if we get more peas. Maybe just one more flush before the real heat of summer sets in. Also in this last bed, we've got some rutabaga. Man, that rutabaga is getting big. It's hard to see. It's in behind the irrigation line. See the purple? I'm gonna probably sow some more rutabaga for fall. Rutabaga just seems like a fall food to me. I don't really want to go and eat rutabaga right now, but we will eat some of it, and we will also put some in storage and see how well it lasts. The other thing I've crammed into this incredibly crammed full bed is the peppers. Bell pepper, getting nice and sized up. This plant, oh my gosh, it is so loaded. These are seeds I saved for my aunt. We did a little garden tour of her place in Niagara region 2 years ago, and in the car ride home my daughter was munching on the snacks we snagged from her garden, and we just shoved the seeds into a little napkin. And so these are those peppers. My son was wandering through the garden and picked 3 peppers off of this branch yesterday, leaving 1. There were 4 big peppers on this one little branch, so I'm kind of glad he thinned them out. It is wild. And there's sweet pepper. Here's some more sweet peppers, sweet banana peppers. These are just from grocery store seeds. Sizing up really nicely. Can't wait. These are a little orange snacking pepper. They're called the orangey sweet Hungarian cheese pepper. They have nothing to do with cheese. In behind we've got some, what are these called? Lemon spice jalapenos. Only 2 plants just because I really didn't think I had room for 3, but we love these in cowboy candy. So it's like candied jalapenos basically, and they're amazing. There's a couple dahlias in the middle of this bed because I like to cram things in. And we've got some aphids, aphid damage going on, but trying not to get too concerned. I'm waiting for the ladybugs to come and show themselves. Ooh, that's an interesting bug I've never seen before, kind of lime green. Being a gardener, especially an organic gardener, when you rely on integrated pest management, it really requires being a bit of an entomologist. I'm constantly asking on Facebook groups to have people ID different bugs so I know whether I should be encouraging them or, you know, squishing them. The cucamelons are also going bonkers now. This one's a little small still, but we just picked a good handful off of them last night, and they're sweet. They're like, I mean, not sweet, but they're very cucumber-like. Hello, little bee. What are you doing on the cucamelon? What a cute little bee. Anyway, the cucamelons, I didn't like them in the past when I tried them because they were pretty tart. These ones are not at all. They're very cucumber-like. I think we're going to eat a lot of these. I'm glad I have 3 planted, and they're supposed to cover this trellis, this arch trellis, along with the scarlet runner bean, which you can see starting to flower here. It'll be beautiful. On the other side of the arch trellis, there's more cucamelon, which is this. It looks a little bit, you know, scraggly right now, but it's going to be just loaded with snacks. And I love plants that just give you snacks as you walk through the garden. There's also a nasturtium that is a trailing nasturtium. I have to attach it to this trellis so it doesn't just trail out everywhere. But I think this arch trellis is going to be a beautiful floral and snacky trellis to walk under this summer. I think I'm going to go to the other side of this bed. It's so bushy, it's hard to see in it. My potatoes here, I can't keep them in line. They're flopping over. I don't know if it means that they need to be harvested. I don't think so. They're intense. These are just fingerling potatoes here. And I've got some yellowing leaves, but you know, the plants are still really sturdy. I'm not concerned about pulling them out yet, but I do have soybeans here, and I want them to get sunlight. I am a high intensity planter, which means I push the envelope in planting things really intensely. I plant them really close together. I plant a ton of things in one small garden space. I just try to make sure that there's adequate nutrition in the soil, that there's adequate water, and things usually thrive that way. What happens is you get no weeds because there's no space for weeds. And so that's what you see here. I've got a big squash, I've got cucamelons going up the trellis, I've got a nasturtium, I've got a patch of soybeans, I've got a huge bed full of potatoes. Man, there's so much potato foliage here. I'm really excited to see how much potato we get out of this. And then at the very end, I have cucumbers. These guys here. We were supposed to trellis the cucumbers, and then I just felt like the cucumber beetles and the squash bugs were going to kill them, and there was no need to build a trellis for this year, no rush, because they were going to die. They're actually okay. I mean, they're covered. I'm squishing like 30 cucumber beetles a day if I get out here in the morning to do it. And there are cucumbers on them. So here's one. There are cucumbers. Despite the intense amount of pest pressure. Yesterday I scooped handfuls of squash bugs. Oh, I'm about to do it again. I like to catch bugs in my hands apparently, which I never used to do, but you become a gardener and you just have to. I lost him. He got away. Here's a cucumber beetle. So the cucumber beetles are a problem because they lay their eggs in the soil, or the striped cucumber beetles do at least. If you're in more northern latitudes, you get striped cucumber beetles. If you're in southern latitudes, you get a different kind of cucumber beetle. I don't really know about them. But the striped ones lay their eggs in the soil, and their larvae eat the roots of your plants. Obviously that's a problem, especially because they come around early in the season and they can wipe out baby plants really quickly. Also, the adult cucumber beetles will just eat the plant itself. They'll eat the baby cucumbers, they'll eat the foliage. I am amazed, after giving up on squishing cucumber beetles, I am amazed that this plant is doing what it's doing. Like, do we have to come in here and build a trellis still? I said we didn't have to because they were gonna die. They're alive. We'll see. Okay, this is beans. I planted 2 new to me varieties of bush beans this year, which I've never seen a bush bean like this. They're so tall and gangly, but they're heirloom, so maybe that's it. They're just not gonna behave like a hybrid bean would. There's Cherokee wax and there's Provider bush beans here, and there are actually some tiny little beans starting. I had these under row cover to keep the leaf miners out of my beets. I also have a bunch of beets in this bed. Nice golden beets sizing up. Chioggia beets. Do not know how to pronounce that after years of researching it. And so I had row cover on, but then I thought, I think these beans might need a little pollination help. So I took the row cover off, and 2 days later, baby beans. Pretty excited to have some beans again going into the freezer and going on our plates. Green beans are one of our favorite side dishes. It's one of the few vegetables that both kids will reliably eat. The lettuce is in here to go to seed. One of my goals as a gardener, just in general, is to save seed from as much as I possibly can. Whether that be growing enough garlic to save cloves to replant the next year, or letting some lettuce plants bolt. Here's some pak choi I've let bolt, and it's beautiful for the pollinators. It's beautiful for salads. You can snip off these flower heads for salads, and it's also just a money saving strategy because I can save these seeds for next year's pak choi. And we got plenty of pak choi out of this bed already, more than we could eat actually. I gave some to my mom, and it's just a wonderful vegetable. Also kale. This is another reason why I was covering this bed with the row cover for the last 6 weeks, because the cabbage loopers feed on the brassicas that I have over in that bed there under cover. Cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, that kind of thing. They also love kale. It's another brassica, and so those little white butterflies will lay their eggs on these beautiful leaves, and then you get these green caterpillars that eat through it fairly quickly. But I've been freezing kale. I'm actually probably stocked up for the year on kale in the freezer, and it's only the end of June. So I'm not that concerned if this stuff gets really buggy. Also, just in general, I'm not concerned if my produce gets buggy, as long as it's not all eaten up before I get to it. I can always wash the bugs off. The other thing in this raised bed potager garden is this one row covered bed with pickling cucumbers. Again, the cucumber beetles are a real problem here. Almost enough of a problem to get me to quit trying to grow cucumbers and squash, but I'm growing pickling cucumbers under the row cover. This is a problem for me because I cannot be trusted to get out here every morning to hand pollinate. It's just, with little kids and work, it's hard to guarantee I'm going to get out here to hand pollinate. But I'm trying it. I really want to be able to grow pickling cucumbers. Our stores of pickles are completely gone. We don't have any in the cold room anymore. It needs to happen. I also have radishes and carrots that are crammed back in here just because I like to use every square centimeter of space. Also under this row cover is watermelons. They're a small watermelon. Row cover is wonderful, but also annoying when you want to access your stuff. Again, I've been trying to hand pollinate the watermelon, but it actually hasn't been putting up that many flowers yet. Could be partly due to the cooler, rainier weather. You'll see I have a wine bottle stuck in the ground. I had a vole problem earlier in the year. They love it when you have a light layer of mulch down, like the straw, or earlier I had cardboard down when I sowed the carrot seeds to keep the carrots moist. They love that as like a habitat. They run underneath it. And apparently a wine bottle, open wine bottle buried in the soil, creates this vibration in the soil when the wind travels across it, and it deters voles. And it worked. Now, it worked in this bed, and then they went over to that bed, which shows me it worked. It's not like the voles just found a better place to live and moved on for that reason. They no longer liked this bed. It's not that I don't drink a lot of wine, it's just for some reason I forget to save the bottles because I need to put one in the strawberry bed too, apparently. This is sapojito. It is a summer squash variety. We get the seeds from family members who are from Argentina. And this puppy, oh, I can't even see it because there's so much foliage. This puppy is ready to pick. We like to do what my family calls sapojito reggiano, which is a stuffed squash with like a ground beef and a white sauce. That is a beautiful, beautiful sapojito. And we would not be growing summer squash at all if it weren't for this row cover. In fact, I haven't even planted pumpkin or squash seeds. Well, I did early, but they didn't come up, and I haven't tried to replant them because I was just so exacerbated by the squash vine borers and by the cucumber beetles that I just thought I was going to give up. But I might try to sow some more because you should never give up. Every seed sown is a chance at more food. And if you don't sow that seed, you're guaranteed to not get that food, right? Anyway, this is going to be a beauty. And there's another one forming. And I don't see any more female flowers today, but I check every day with my paintbrush in hand for female flowers that I can hand pollinate. I actually found some cucumber flowers, and I'm going to try and use them as an example of how I try to hand pollinate. This bed is the back of the one tomato trellis. It's got lemon basil, which is going to flower, but it's fine. I just use this one for teas mostly. And then Genovese basil, which there's a few planted throughout. Oh, there's a squash bug. Where'd he go? Did I get him? Ah! There he is. They're not even a fast bug, but like fast enough. That's really gross. But I really like squash. This zinnia was stunning. It was like multicolored yellow to fuchsia, magenta to red. It was gorgeous, and we just snipped it back. When you snip back zinnias, they send out more flowers. A lot of flowers do that. Most flowers and most herbs, if you cut them back, they just send out more. On the back side of this tomato trellis is radish. Again, I like to save seeds where I can, and so I let some of the radish go to seed. It's not only beautiful and friendly for the pollinators, and it not only gives me seed for next year, so I don't have to spend that $4.50 on a pack of seeds, but the seed pods themselves are delicious. They like go great in salads or just for eating. Tastes a little bit like squash bug guts. Okay, that's it for the raised bed potager. At the back, actually, you can see we've got clematis. This is a chicken coop, so we've got clematis growing up the front of the chicken coop, and clematis on both sides. That's a Nellie Moser variety. It hasn't started to flower yet. This is some other variety. It's beautiful. These, my favorite giant alliums. They are done flowering now, but they're still so cool looking. Got a few of them now. And then we have these beautiful mauve poppies. This one is just about ready to open. This is catmint that flowers here, and spearmint, which we use for tea over here. Hi ladies. Did you enjoy the thunderstorm? Okay, so that's the potager. Which side do I go up next? By our pool here, I'm building a wall for the one side of the potager. I really like it when gardens are boxed in with like 4 walls. So we have our peach tree. I pruned this thing back to like 4 feet high in the winter, and it just shot up. Peaches grow fast. There's also a bunch of herbs around it and a bunch of strawberries. We've got this bronze fennel. It started from seed last year. It's beautiful. I really love it. There's some native lakeside daisy and some lemon thyme and more wild strawberries. There are always super cool mushrooms coming up everywhere. These are just a wild mushroom. They're so cool. Parsley, chives, more sea kale back there. This is our plum tree. I had to move this one this spring, but it looks like it's gonna do fine. I tried to prune the stone fruits to a vase shape. There was some confusion with this tree and its placement last year. I thought I was gonna have to espalier, so it's gone through like a flip-flop from vase shape to espalier to then trying to make it vase shaped again, and I moved it, but it's doing okay. This is feverfew. It's a little bit of dotted horse mint or spotted horse mint. And then this is our new pear tree this year because the rabbits ate the last one. This one will be espaliered. It's just not quite ready to train it yet. I don't want to break the little branches off. There's dill back there. Rhubarb patch is off the hook. We just keep harvesting whenever there's time. This pathway is freshly laid. I don't think I'm really going to bother walking up here the side of the pool, but we've got lots of native plants along this side. Nannyberry tree, boysenberry, blueberry in the pot. This is my daughter's cut flower garden. Sweet alyssum, calendula, poppies, anise hyssop, zinnias, gomphrenias. That's our ginger at the back in the pot, not doing well this year. And this is a grape. It's a table grape that's gonna climb up around this trellis. Also, there's a lily in front of the chicken coop that's going to open soon, and it's going to be gorgeous. Back here is our food forest on a hill. This is the other wall of the potager garden. This is our junk corner. Every garden, especially every homestead, has a junk corner. This is a tomato, cherry tomato. I'm letting it go wild. We're just going to watch and teach the kids and teach the internet what happens when you don't trellis a tomato. And spoiler alert, it's going to be fine. It's going to produce tons. It may die quite a bit earlier than the rest, but it's going to produce tons. This is the trap crop for squash bugs and cucumber beetles. Kind of, actually not as many as I usually see on here. It's another Zepachito. It was an extra one. I've heard Blue Hubbard is the cucumber beetle's favorite, or is it squash bug's favorite? Anyway, it's a favorite. It's a good one to use for a trap crop where you plant it outside the limits of your main garden and they flock to that one instead. Got a little yarrow planted here. This is a haskap. And clearly I should have picked this one yesterday. Fell off. We're gonna eat that one today. These are only in their second year. They're gonna become huge bushes. Got a pollinizer haskap there. It's Aurora. No, that's Borealis. This is Aurora. And this is Aurora. And no, I did not name my shrubs. This is the name of the varieties. We have an apple tree here that was from last year. I'm just letting it fill out and grow how it wants right now, and in the winter I'm gonna do another round of pruning and shape it a bit more, but it's surrounded by wild strawberries. There's one right there. They're too much work to bother picking when we have all the big juicy strawberries, but the wildlife like them and they're so sweet. This is a horseradish. I don't know where to put it yet. And some rhubarb that I started from seed. I'm not trying to harvest from it this year. I'm just letting it go to seed for fun. More on this hill, we've got sweet potatoes in the totes. And this is where I'm trialing the sheep's wool natural fertilizer. And more sweet potatoes where I don't have the sheep's wool natural fertilizer in it. It's a beautiful native foxglove. It's called Penstemon digitalis. And then, you know, a little showier, the non-native foxglove. I have both. More apple trees here. They were planted this spring. This is an apple tree. Training it now, surrounded by some onions and some comfrey and some chives and some wild strawberries. And another little baby apple tree here. And my favorite part is the wine cap mushrooms growing all over this hill. I'm letting these ones just, I don't know, send out their spores. Go out in big poofs of spores, hopefully. There's more coming up over there. I spread the spores for these in 2021 and nothing came of it, despite watering this hill every 2 or 3 days because it was another drought year. Didn't get a lot of rain, and of course they need a lot of moisture. Nothing came of it, and so I'm so overjoyed to see them coming up this year. And of course there's tons more mushrooms that are not edible but really cool. The goal for this space is that it will be a bit of a cottage garden mixed with food forest. So around each apple tree on the hill will be a bit of a guild of edible plants, and then just beautiful showy plants everywhere else. Oh, there's a nasturtium that I don't remember planting, but I must have. Look at that little go-getter. Okay, and then up on the hill top, oh, there's some currants there. I shouldn't forget to mention all the currants. There's pink champagne currants that are ripening. Don't mind all the box elder beetle nymphs, they're everywhere. Red currants back there, my daughter's fairy garden. And there's a native shade garden along the very back. I'm not gonna get into that today. This is a red velvet gooseberry, still too young to really produce, but it's growing steadily. And then this is the raspberry patch. Just finished the trellis last week, and fall-bearing trellises or the fall-bearing raspberries are already loaded, even though they're not supposed to do anything till much later in the season. Here's a bee enjoying the comfrey. Oh, and the raspberry. Thank you, bee. I just noticed something wonderful down at the other end of the raspberries. There's 25 feet of raspberries here, and it's not all of our raspberries. They're starting to color. Just starting, but it's better than nothing. These will be red raspberries. If they were supposed to be yellow, it would be much more exciting. But they're growing. They are growing. Really, really pleased with year 2 of the Food Forest Hill. And then down here we've got some pearly everlasting. It's a native flower. It's beautiful. Got 2 kinds of sage, a peony, and some lemon balm. This is a lilac tree that needs a lot of TLC. And then on the far side of the hill, oh, back here, sugar maple. These big trees at the back are all Manitoba maples. They're pretty much a weed, but they're in tree form. And they like to fall over to make room for other things to grow. So we're going to be getting rid of them, but we've planted a sugar maple here. It's already taller than me. Here's native ostrich ferns. This is a hazelnut tree. We have lots of invasive species coming through this chain link fence, but all we can do is try to keep them back and plant our natives. This is a redbud native tree. We've got ginger coming up under here. This is a purple flowering sand cherry that was here when we bought the place. Obviously it's huge. And there's a sensitive fern underneath, hellebore, and some elderberry. These are elderberries. This is their first year, but this one's already putting out a flower. This is bluebells. This is the second year for this elderberry. And lots of flowers. Getting eaten by mosquitoes now. Entered their territory. This is blue-stemmed goldenrod. That's a pink snowberry. That's a choke cherry. This is an eastern prickly gooseberry, so it's a native gooseberry. This is chocolate mint. Ooh, that's a cool bug. I don't know what you are, but you're pretty cool. And this is our David Austin rose that's being attacked by something, but I'm just trying to stay positive that it will overcome its pressures and be okay. Then on the other side of the shed, this is going to be my son's garden. This pretty yellow flower is called balsam groundsel. It's a native flower. I don't remember its scientific name. I just planted green beans, so my common kind of bush bean all around here. I forget the name of it, but it's the one I usually grow. So I know it's a bush bean. It's very low growing. And then in the middle, we've got something and something else. I don't remember what seeds I sowed. I think it's probably a honey nut squash and maybe a melon. I don't remember. But there's lots of little fungi here coming up, mushrooms, so it's a happy garden. Also, there's more raspberries here. This is wild black raspberries. This one's sad because something fell on it and it broke, but it's alive. Another wild black raspberry. And then there's some yellow fall-bearing raspberries here. Man, there's a lot to go through in a garden tour at this place, and it's only a 1/4 of an acre. You can fit a lot of food into a small space. Also, this isn't including the front yard, which has more native plants, a serviceberry tree, and our asparagus alley.